Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So let us continue from our previous discussion. So let me present my screen. So there is, I think, has the midterm schedule been shared with you?
No, sir. Exam date wise, like which exam is on which date, that has not been shared, but it is from next week, next Monday, 15th.
Okay, so the exam date tentatively I will tell you, but it might change. So let me just quickly check my email. Just a minute. So So your this midterm tentatively has been fixed for Friday 2 to 4. Okay. So Friday 19th 2 to 4. So let me just so this is again might change, okay, but I'm just telling you based on our current information. So let me write it here. So midterm. So this is again tentative. Okay, you have to wait for the official announcement. Both CS they will have in the same time, right? 360 and CS 530. It is Friday, which is 19th, like 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. 1400 to 1600. Okay, 2 to 4, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. This is tentative. Okay, and this is going to be open book, open internet. You can check for solutions in the internet and the book and your notes, but you cannot collaborate with your friends. Okay. So what we are going to do when we are correcting, we will correct it by your project group. So I'm presuming that a project group is consisting of people who are close to friends of each other. So if at all, Rohit, can you mute yourself?
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is we are going to correct project group wise so that this is I trust that you will not do any such copying, but just to be sure, we are going to do checks according to the project groups, and so I will strongly advise against any kind of academic dishonesty. Okay, write your own answers. Okay, it's going to be anyway open book, open internet, open notes and everything, but all I'm asking you is don't collaborate directly with your friends. Okay, and there will be no programming. So let me just write here, because last time I did programming, I gave you programming to your previous batch and even the current batch, the postgraduate students, and the performance has not been very good in programming, and I understand that because in a short duration it is difficult. So no programming questions. Okay, then so it's open book, open internet if you want. Okay, and of course no collaborations. And then if at all we find any evidence of collaboration, the entire group will be penalized based on our institute norms, which could be 0 in the midterm plus a fail grade. So please don't do it. It's not worth it. Okay, and especially I'm telling you, telling to the class toppers, you help your friends before the midterm, after the midterm, but during the midterm, please don't do. Okay, so just submit your own answers, and it should be fine. Okay, and this time I'm not giving any options and choices and everything. So the idea is I want to get like a good separation between each of the students, and I want to see how much each student really understands. So the point is not to finish all the questions. The point is to just get a good measure of how each of you stand. Okay, so this is about the midterm. Are there any questions here? So the syllabus is what we covered till today. And this Thursday and Friday, I'm not taking classes. Even on Saturday, I'm not taking classes, so that you get some time to prepare. Okay. And we will have to do the makeup for this, and that makeup will be on every Saturdays as usual. And the idea is when we do that, these classes that I have cancelled will be made up then, and then also during the final exam we can give you some more days off. Okay, so please reserve this 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. slot. Okay, so this slot, you please on Saturdays you ensure that you keep this free. Okay, so so this, I understand that this midterm week 27th I cannot take, so this will start from 3rd. Okay, these special classes will be starting from 3rd, and it will be there for the whole of April. Okay, and then your final exams will be in the month of May, and we will stop a little bit ahead of time. So that way, and of course the attendance will be optional and things like that. Okay, so are there any questions regarding these announcements? Okay, so yeah, so for the assignment 3, since there has been a few requests, so what we are going to do is assignment 3 deadline will be extended plus 4 days for CS 360 students, and plus 8 days for CS 530. Okay, the reason is CS 530 students have many more things to do. There is group sizes are smaller, so they will be a little bit hard pressed in time to finish it. And anyway, it shouldn't matter. As I was telling, CS 360 and CS 530 students will be graded separately, so it really doesn't affect each of the group. So this is not really unfair in any way. So this is what is regarding assignment 3. So I will extend the deadline by plus 4 days, though CS 530 students can submit till another 4 days they can take. Okay. So all right. So this is about all the announcements. So let us continue our discussion. So I have written a few things already just so that we can get a head start. So what we had been discussing originally in the linear models is the perceptron algorithm. So perceptron algorithm works when the data is linearly separable. And what happens there is there were 2 versions of the algorithm which we saw, and one version has a initialization pre-processing step. These are typically called as. So whenever there are yi equal to 0 samples, for those we are going to pre-multiply by -1 all the coordinates that are there in xi, right? Xi is a feature vector of d dimensions. So this will be having d components. Each of the component is multiplied by -1 as a pre-processing step. Okay, and then the algorithm seeks to put all the samples on one side of the hyperplane, and a hyperplane is defined by wk. Okay, so this is the perceptron algorithm. We have seen this. I am just mentioning this here because we are going to use some ideas that we learned during perceptron for the regression thing. So in the perceptron, we saw that we can then do an optimization view, where what we do is we look at the cost function associated with a W, okay, in the optimization view. And whichever samples are not in the proper place, that means whichever samples are not onto the one side, which is W transpose X greater than 0, okay, all those samples will add some cost to it. So these samples will be negative, so negative of negative will be positive, okay, and the cost being positive means it's not really very good. So we would like to drive the cost towards 0, okay. So then we saw that when you treat it as an optimization view, you can look at the gradient, and the gradient turns out to be this, okay. And we can, whenever you are able to get a gradient in this way, you can do either the batch version or the incremental version. In the batch version, you take the entire gradient and you make a step along that gradient. In an incremental version or a stochastic gradient descent version, you just take one amongst these samples and then you make a step along that direction. Okay, this is what we have seen so far. And then we went from there, we went to regression. So in regression, what you have is you have n data samples, okay, xi and yi, I 1 to n. Okay, and yi can be real number, Okay, yi can be a real number itself, and this means this is like a function learning problem. What is that? Function learning just means that you have some x, and then you have a few y's like this, and you would like to find a best function that approximates your data. Okay, that's why it's called function learning, but it's just regression. This is what it is typically called. It's regression problem. However, you can also use it to do classification, because 0, 1 is also elements that belong to R. So you can treat yi belonging to 0, 1 and try to find a function which learns that. Okay, so that an example that we saw is that if for the f of x, we saw linear example is this, where you are doing wixi plus w naught. Okay, so here just to get the notation very clear, can I just quickly check if someone can explain what is the difference between this xi and this capital Xi? Yes, anybody wants to tell me?
Sir, the capital Xi is the entire feature vector, whereas the small xi is just one feature,
Yes.
the ith feature.
Yes, that is correct. Okay, there is a confusion here. Whoever answered that, who was that? Who answered this?
Sir, Siddharth.
Okay, so Siddharth, and everybody can see the confusion, right? Because the same xi's are being used. Here, xi is a feature vector. So that means you have d dimensions of feature vector, which is x1, x2, up to xd. Okay, and since there is a ILO associated with it, we have to put it somewhere. Let's say we put it on the top like this. Okay, so this is your feature. So entire feature together, I am going to call it as capital Xi. Okay, this, for example, this could be if you are trying to learn house prices. Okay, this first feature could be area. The second feature can be number of bedrooms. Okay, and the third, all this like this. Third feature could be let's say pin code. All such things. Okay, so these are all the things that are coming in the small xi. Capital Xi represents the entire vector. Okay, so whenever I'm trying to find out for a given x, what is the approximation that I should be using? Okay, and if I'm using a linear approximation, then it is going to be this function, and you can write it very elegantly as W transpose X, where X is now again a vector. Okay, and then we also saw that sometimes to make our life easier, we'll augment this X to some X tilde, where then we put a 1 ahead of every term, so that you can have W naught also as W naught transpose 1. Okay, so that way we can, when we do this, we get the advantage that you can write Fx is equal to W transpose X tilde. This makes it considerably simpler if you have this 1 added. Okay, these are all notations, but the problem is these things can cause a lot of confusion. So that's why I'm spending some time explaining this. Okay, and like we saw in the case of perceptron, we can think of a cost associated with a particular W. In the same way, we can think of linear least square loss, where J of W is given by this. So this is your approximation to yi. Okay, right? This is your approximation to yi, and I would like to find that W which minimizes this difference across all the samples. Okay, that is why we are having this over all the samples, I equal to 1 to n. These are all the samples, and W is a single W that should be able to do this problem well. And that happens to be our linear least square solution. This is, if any algorithm which tries to find a W like this, okay, is called as a linear regression based. It's a linear regression that you're doing here. Okay, and what we did in the previous class is we solved this precisely using one of this techniques in optimization, which is you take the gradient of this function and set it to 0 and find a value of W analytically. Okay, and this we did in the following manner. We collected all the vectors, all the training samples x1 to xn, which are all the augmented vectors. Okay, and you arrange it in the rows of A. Okay, so that means A will have first training example here, x1, the second training example here. Okay, and then third here, and all the way, all the n training samples are here. This is your A matrix. Okay, so this is, and then of course we are also putting the first component of this is always going to be 1. All of this is going to be 1 because it's an augmented representation. Okay, so this is our A, and W is the weights that you seek to learn. So now what was the originally how we had it in like this. When you convert to the matrix notation, the JW becomes like this. Okay, this we saw in the last class, and then the approach was to take the gradient of this and set it to 0. Okay, so we take the gradient of this and set it to 0, and that gives us W, which is A transpose A inverse A transpose Y. And then we had a discussion on when is A transpose A invertible. This we discussed thoroughly in the class. Okay, and I hope that was clear to everybody. Now, when we came here, right? So we saw that in perceptron there was no closed form solution. The only way we could optimize perceptron was either using batch gradient descent or stochastic gradient descent. In the same way, we can do for this regression also, and that algorithm is called as steepest descent or LMS algorithm, least mean square algorithm. Okay, so the approach is to take its gradient and make a step along the gradient. Okay, so now we go back to the original JW. Okay, this is given by this, and now if you want to take the gradient of J, so what is a function J? So J is a function which goes from RD plus 1 to R, right? You can see that J is a cost function. You get a single number for it, right? So if I want to study how J changes like in the calculus sense, we need to take the gradient. Okay, and gradient is defined as collection of all the partial derivatives of this function. Okay, so this will be del J by del W naught all the way till del J by del WD. Okay, so now if you want to take del J by del W naught, this is going to be given by this expression. Here what I have done is that I have taken Xi transpose W and then I have written it in the usual fashion. So I have taken Xi and I have broken it down to individual vectors. Okay, is this step clear to people from here? How do we get here? So basically Xi is, we all know that it is having D plus 1 components and W has D plus 1 components. When you take inner product, you just take the inner product component wise and you add it up, right? So that is what I have done here. Okay, and now when I take the gradient with respect to W naught, what happens is for W naught, what is X naught of I? So can someone tell me what is X naught of I? For the ith sample, what is X naught? What is this?
Sir, 1.
Yes, this is 1 because this is the augmented representation. Okay, so when I take the derivative, there will be a 2 coming over here. Okay, that 2 cancels with this, and then I am taking derivative of W naught into 1. So that is nothing but 1. So this is the derivative with respect to W naught. With for W1, there will be a x1 of I will be associated. There will be associated term. So that gradient with respect to, so I should write partial derivatives, right? So the symbol is del, not the D. So with respect to 1, when I take the partial derivative, this is what I will get. Okay, and if I collect all these vectors and write it in a vector form, okay, so I get this term. So the question that I want to ask here, which are all the vectors in this equation? Can someone tell me? So there are two terms here, right? This is one term. This is another term. So is this term a vector, or are we treating it as a single number?
So it's a vector.
Yeah, this is a vector. Okay. How about this term?
So
Sorry.
So it's a single number.
Yeah, it's a single
It's
number.
a single number.
Yes.
Entire.
Yeah. This is a single number. Okay. So, are there any questions so far? Is the how we take the gradient of JW, is it clear to everybody? Can I quickly check in the chat? So far, is it clear? Yes. How about the others? There are a lot of you have not said anything. Rohit? Why are other WJs are not treated constant? Shivam, they are treated as constants, right? Because see, this is chain rule. I am taking, this is 2 into the entire terms appear. Whenever I am taking derivative, 2 times this, right? So this is chain rule. So this entire terms appear. But the second time when I am taking the derivative of the inner part, right? W1, W2, all of them are treated as constants. So the only term that remains is d by dw naught of w naught remains, and that is equal to 1. So we are treating it as a constant, Shivam. Okay. A few people I don't hear from. I don't know what's going on. Manan? It's very...
Yes, sir.
It's clear?
Sir, actually, yeah, I was not able to see, like I joined late, so...
Okay, so let's see till where you have come. Did you understand this part? This is okay, right? How this comes, the loss function. This is the loss. I am trying to approximate yi as xi transpose w. So this is like how far I am from yi. This is jw. This is the loss of a w. Okay, and then I'm taking the derivative of this with respect to all the individual w's. All right. Okay, you try to see, Manan. If you have any questions, you ask.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, I don't know what else I can do. So if you ask me, I can clarify. Anyway, so now with this approach, we can have the batch version. The batch version takes the entire gradient and takes a step, eta step proportional to that gradient. Can someone tell me why we are taking negative here? Manan, can you tell me why this is negative? Why not WK plus eta?
Sir, since we are going in the descent direction.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, Manan, thanks. So negative is because we want to minimize JW. Okay. If you wanted to maximize, then it will be a plus. So eta is a value that is greater than 0, and it is chosen suitably. So there is a lot of theory associated how you choose eta. So typically what you can do is you can choose a few values like 0.01, 0.1, 0.5, 1, like this. You can try which among them gives the best, and then you can just stick with that, and you can see which. So that way you can do this. So I will give you some small assignments to do around this topic to get some idea. Okay. So see, when you go to actually use this in practice, there will be a lot of libraries that will allow you to do. Okay. The thing is, when you are doing a course, we should learn the theory sufficiently well enough so that you can improvise. Okay. I see there is one common problem that happens when people are doing machine learning usually. So typical approach is you Google up and you get some solution, you run it, it gives some performance, and then you stop. Okay, if it doesn't work, you try some other algorithm. Okay, the objective of this course is not to make you program in that sense. What we want you to do is we want you to understand the inner workings of this, and whenever something doesn't work, you should be able to debug it from first principles. Okay, so there was a question yesterday when I interacted with the PG students. There was a question on Bayesian estimation. There was a question which is related to, we saw two approaches, right? We saw map, and we saw this is the mode of the posterior, and then we saw mean of the posterior. Okay, then there is another approach which is also used. Okay, the third approach, which we did not do in the class, this was you integrate out the posterior parameter. Okay, and you get what is called as Px given d. This is the third approach, and we did not cover this in the class. And the point is, see, we cannot cover all the things that are there in the entire, like the Dudahart book or Bishop, because there are too many details. Okay, but at the same time, we don't want to just treat everything as black box. Okay, so we want you to learn things with sufficient level of depth, but not too far, so that it outlives the benefit that you're going to get. Okay, so my point is, whenever I'm asking you assignments and I ask you to code it yourself rather than looking at the library, the idea is you get some understanding on how actually these algorithms work. And I totally admitted that once you are going to use this at practice, you will not actually write these algorithms yourself. You will use what is given as part of standard libraries. Okay, so the point of assignments is to get you to think like how originally people would have thought about it. Okay, and that gives you good insight. All right, so the point is this choice of eta is important, but not going to be discussed in the class, but you will get to do this in your assignments. That's the issue. Okay, so now coming to the LMS algorithm, we take the gradient, we get some step size like this. Okay, and the stochastic version, instead of taking the entire thing, it only looks at one particular sample. Okay, so this is what we get in the stochastic version. Now let's I have already written down some questions here. So can someone tell me what is xk? Yes, can someone tell me what is xk? In the stochastic version, what is xk?
Some misclassified training data at the kth iteration.
Yes, so there could be multiple. You just choose one amongst the misclassified, like one among them. It's not misclassified per se, Bhavana, because here, yeah, if it is, it's not like that, because there is this gradient which consists of all these terms. You just pick one among the terms. Bhavana, does it make sense? See, in the perceptron, what you said was correct. In the perceptron, you have to choose one which is misclassified. In perceptron, that was the case. Here, this is not like misclassified. The algorithm is not doing that. The gradient has several terms, right? So what you do is you just pick one xi and call it as xk. Bhavana, does it make sense?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, can someone else also tell me what are all the vectors that are here? So there will be, I will mark a few things. You tell me which of them are vectors. So let's say this as A, this as B. Okay, no need. This is simply, already there are enough notations. Sorry about that. Let's not introduce more. Okay, so can I ask somebody to tell which of them are vectors? The first one, what is this?
Sir, it's a vector.
Okay. Yes, it's a vector. What about the second one?
Vector.
Okay. Eta is a number. Okay. What about this one?
Vector.
Yeah. Okay. And the final term?
Number.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. Okay. So when you are doing some operation, you are getting vector update, and then you do this over multiple things. Okay. Now, stochastic algorithm has a lot of advantages. It's much faster than batch. Okay, and it will, even though it takes a little longer to converge, it is much better. Okay, so and then of course I discussed in the last class, this has a usage in the online version. As suppose if your data samples are coming one after the other, you can use only stochastic. You cannot use batch. Okay, so then another discussion that is important here is that if you had the linearity in the linear regression is in the W, it is not in the X's, right? What I'm saying is, so F is equal to W transpose X. Okay, so W transpose has to be W transpose, but X could be anything. So I can make it as the W transpose phi of X. I can take phi, which is like phi1, phi2, phi3 like that, and I can take W transpose phi of X. So that way, if I do, still this is linear. Okay, and if yi is belong to 0, 1, or if yi belongs to -1, 1, the same LMS algorithm can be used for classification. Okay, so yeah, so that is what I would like to say here. So one example, let us take for how the regression will work if we use it for classification. Okay, so let's take some cases. So let us say we have like tumor size. This is an example which is given very, very often by various people. Okay, so this is tumor size, and there are two classes. Okay, the class red. So let's say, let me just clear this off. Okay. So you have tumor size. So the blue points, they correspond to benign tumors. Okay, so and the red points correspond to malignant tumors. Okay, so this is tumor size, this is malignant, this is benign. Okay, and you would like to come up with a linear classifier separating the two. Okay, so so blue, let us say, so blue points are labeled as 0 and the red points are labeled as 1. Okay, so now what we do is, yeah, so when we have something like this, you try to put a classifier separating this. So one immediate thing that you could do is you can augment it. So in the augmented world, when you augment this, when you add a this, what it does is it shifts. So there will be tumor size anyway there, but the first one of the components will become 1. So let us say this is tumor size, and there will be one another component which is like the W transpose. This is the X naught. Okay, and that X naught component will be 1. The effect that it has is it pushes all the vectors like this. Okay, I hope this is straightforward for you to see. And you will try to find one single line that best represents this. Okay, so then you will try to find W transpose X so that this is all close to 0 and this is all close to 1. Okay, so yeah, so that is what it will do, and it will try to put a line separating them. So depending upon how you try to solve, you will get a line like this. Okay, and the line will try to minimize the errors that you would get here. Okay, so this is what will happen when you use linear regression for classification. Okay, it's a simple example I just wanted to show. Okay, so there is a problem when you use linear regression for classification. W transpose X can be much greater than 1, and W transpose X can be much greater than 0. Okay, because that's how it is. If there is a very large tumor somewhere, then W will be trained in such a way that W transpose X for that particular point will be a high number. Okay, so these are all very simple things. So what I would like to say is you can use linear regression for both function learning as well as for classification. Okay, so this is the example. So let us discuss something new. Are there any questions till this point? Okay, so let us now try to understand one concept which is very important, which is which is about best function approximation in the probabilistic sense. We want to understand this from the lens of probability. Okay, so that is the next discussion. So we have understood that J of W, we saw that this is given by half I equal to 1 to n xi transpose W minus yi, right, square. So this is what we have already seen. And then the idea is, there is, in the probability world, right, we have seen Bayes classifier. We understand that x comma y together, they define a distribution called as P, some distribution that makes your x comma y come, right? This is what we have seen, like in the case of your like that standard Bayes classifier, we have seen an example like this. And the points that you see are the heights, like this x, and then this is f of x. You get points from x based on some underlying probability, right? This discussion we have seen, and we said pi 1 equal to pi 2 is the prior probability, or maybe we called it p1 or p2, something like this. Okay, so in the same sense, we can think of this JW. Okay, JW approximates expected value of x transpose W minus y whole squared. Okay, and then there are n terms here, so n by 2. Okay, this is what it is approximating, right? Because when you are taking more and more samples, and if you are computing this again and again, basically JW is trying to approximate this. Okay, so I don't know if this is clear to you or not, but you let me know if you want. So basically, this is called as this we have done, right? So if you want to find expected value of x, where x is coming from some underlying distribution, how do you do it? You will take 1 over n summation xi I equal to 1 to n, right? This is what we do. If you want to do expected value of f of x, okay, so what you do, you take n samples again and you do f of xi I equal to 1 to n. Okay, in the same way, if you look at this, saying that xi's and yi's have come from some underlying distribution, this is what JW is approximating. Okay, so yeah, so basically, this is what it is doing. In general, your JW is going to be, so this is for linear classifiers. If you didn't have linearity required, and if we were trying to do for some f of x, okay, if we had something like this, then JW approximates n by 2 expected value of f of x minus y whole square. Okay, and this brings us back to what we had seen as a risk of a classifier. So you remember risk. So risk was when we saw risk of a classifier, we said that there are different types of risk. We had 0-1 risk. Okay, then we also defined the generalized risk, right? This was for generalized risk. So, but for a regression problem, we don't have risks of this form. What we have is the least square risk. Okay, which is defined as R of f is expected value of f of x minus y whole square. Okay, so the expectation is taken over the underlying distribution of x and y. So this is the risk of a classifier, risk of a regression problem. So if you want to do a function learning, this is the risk. Of course, if you want, you can use the same risk, the least square risk, even for classification. Okay, so far I have told you nothing new. All I am trying to bring home the point is, when we did this, okay, this is called as empirical risk minimization. Okay, risk minimization. So what that means is, given the training data, you want to find a W which minimizes the risk. Okay, and that is within that training data you would like to do. If the training data size keeps increasing, then JW approximates this actual risk of this form. Okay, so that is what we generalized it. So from W transpose X, if you take any other function, this is what is the risk. Okay, so this is the least square risk. And now what we are going to show, so we are going to show that argmax. So we are, see, if at all you want to do the best regression, like best hypothesis for regression, what is that? What is that going to be? In the probability sense, what is that going to be? Right? We saw when we did it in, when we did the same exercise in Bayes classifier, we saw that the best classifier is the Bayes classifier. That is what we saw, right? You remember that discussion, right? So now in the regression world, the best regression that we can do is f star is equal to argmin of whichever function minimizes this, right? You would like to find out that, okay, where f belongs to, let's say we take f over all possible functions if we were to do, and if you try to find out the best function, okay, that best function of x which minimizes this, that function we are going to call it as f star. And if you want to do it very precisely, this is what you are supposed to find. Okay, and we are going to prove a theorem now. This f star of x is nothing but conditional expectation of y given x. Okay, so this is the theorem that we are going to prove. Are there any questions till here? So we are now moving on to something new. So what we saw already is an example of a linear LMS, least mean square algorithm. We saw an example, and then we also looked at perceptron. We saw two ways in which you can do LMS, and after that we are now moving to empirical risk. We defined what's an empirical risk, and we defined what is the general risk for a least square. What's a general risk for a least square regression problem? Okay, and now my claim or my theorem says that we are the best you can do, the best function that you can learn, which best approximates y, is expected conditional expectation of y given x. So this is the theorem that we are going to prove. Okay, so if there are any questions, please ask now. Okay, so assuming that everything is clear so far, okay, let us see a proof of this. So what we can do, we have to show basically expected value of y given x minus y whole squared. Okay, this one. This is the risk when you use f star. Okay, this is going to be less than any other function that you can think of. This is what we need to show, right? We need to show. Now, to do that, we will do some algebra. So f of x minus y whole squared, we are going to add and subtract this term. Okay, so what that will give us is f of x minus expected value of y given x plus this squared plus expected value of y given x minus y. Okay, so plus, and I'm adding and subtracting E of y given x, and I'm expanding that. So that becomes a squared plus b squared plus 2 times this term and this term. Okay. I think this step should be clear. So adding and subtracting this and expanding it, you get this. Okay, now we will take expectations on both sides. So we will take expectation here and we will take expectation here. Okay, and we will first take the expectation of this term and try to analyze this. Okay, taking expectation on both sides and then looking at this particular term. So let's take expectation of this term. So when you take expectation, there are 3 linear terms. So what I want to say is like expectation of f of x plus g of x plus h of x. If you take, this is going to be expected value of f of x plus expected value of g of x plus expected value of h of x, right? So linearity holds. So when I take expectation, this term, all the expectations will spread over all the 3 terms. So we can only consider one of the terms, which is the last term, and then we can look at that. So let's choose a different color, otherwise it will get very monotonous. So what we are doing is we are taking expected value of the last term, f of x minus expected value of y given x Okay, so this is what we are taking the expectation now. Now, we have also seen that expected value of some h of x is also equal to expected value of so let's say h of x comma y is expected value of h of x comma y given x. I can do this, right? So I messed it up. Let's write it properly. So if I want to do this, I can take expected value of, first I can take expected value outer term can be with respect to x, and the inner term I can take expected value of h of x comma y given x, right? This way I can do. So the same idea we are going to use here. So we are going to take expected value here and then iteratively take expectation. Okay, this should be clear to everybody. That is just very straightforward. I've taken this. Okay, now, so now let me ask people from the class. Okay, so which of the things are random here? Okay, so can someone tell me? So there are several terms here. So let us focus on the inner expectation. Okay, so in the inner expectation, there is a value of x that we have already chosen. See this again, I will ask this and some of you will answer, and then maybe many people don't follow, and then just because somebody answers, I will think that they have understood, everyone has understood. So if there is someone who doesn't follow this discussion, you should ask me. Any case, with that warning, let me just ask people. So give this inner expectation is an expectation given a particular value of x. So now, having said that, x has taken a particular value, which we are not writing here, but given that x has taken a particular value, which amongst these which amongst this is a random thing and which is not? Okay, so that is a question here. So I will write all the terms. So this is term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4. Okay, so which of the things are random? Can someone tell me? How about term 1?
No, sir, it's fixed.
So Siddharth says it's fixed. So how many of you say it's fixed? Is term 1 fixed? So if it is fixed, you can type fixed in the chat. Can I quickly check? Nidish says fixed. So Siddharth Solanki says not fixed. We will come to him. Okay, most people think it is fixed. So Siddharth Solanki, why do you think the first term is random?
Sir, we haven't decided our function yet.
Okay, good, very good. So the function has been, so see what we need to show is that this is good, Siddharth, what you're asking. What we need to show is this is true for all f, right? We need to show that this is true for all f, okay? Right, Siddharth?
Yes, sir.
So now what we are saying is pick any f, okay? Let's fix a f. Pick a f of your choice, Siddharth. I should have made that clear, okay? Let's pick a f which is there. Okay, now I'm asking Siddharth, let's say we pick an f and now I comment, there is some fixed f. I don't know what it is, but let's say we have picked a f. Now, what do you think?
Yeah, then let's fix.
Okay. So I'm hoping that everybody understands that it is not, I'm not saying that for a given value of x, it is fixed. If you change x, like in the outer expectation, you are taking expectation over x. When this function comes outside, if this function were to come outside, then it is random. But for a given value of x, this is fixed. Okay, so this is fixed. So what about the second one? Is this fixed or is it random?
Sir, I think it's fixed.
Who said that?
Sir, Siddharth Shah.
Okay. So Lakshmi, okay, there are few people, I'm getting answers all around the place. So Devansh, many people are saying random, some people are saying fixed. Okay, so that this is good. I like if there are some confusions. That means I have some role to play. All right, so okay, so this is an important discussion. We have had this many times. So whenever you are writing expected value of y given x, right? So this example I keep giving you. So you take any example like this. Okay, so let's say there is values like 2, 3, 1, 5, 7, 2, something like this. Okay, then there is p of x comma y, right? This is, let's say, 0.1, 0.5, and 0.4. Okay, so now expected value of y given x. Okay, so that is a function which depends upon x. So x can be 2, 1, or 7. Okay, so let's add a few more points. Otherwise, there is nothing to do here. So let's say there is 2, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 2, 2, 1, 3, and 7, 6. Okay, so this should sum to 1. So 0.05. Okay, 0.3, 0.2, 0.05. Okay, 0.3, 0.1. See, what I'm saying is there is a few values of x and y which appears like this, and then there is a joint probability. Now, let's ask people. Okay, so yeah, so I will ask people who say it is random so that they get some sense of this. So the first person who said random was Anushri. So Anushri, what is the expected value of y given x is equal to 2? So let's say I'm saying x is equal to 2. Okay, so these are the 2 points that you should consider. Okay, what is the expected value of y? Anushri, you can type it in the chat if this is not working.
Sir, can you go back to this?
Yeah.
So we can take 3 into 0.05, then 2 into 0.0.
Yeah, so 3 into 0.05 is not correct. You should take 3 into 0.05 divided by the sum of both, right? This is not p of x comma y. This is p of x given y equal to, p of y given x is equal to 2. Okay. Anushri, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is an average between 3 and 2. Okay, so this will be like, what is this? 5, 2.5. Okay, similarly, can I ask next person, Lakshmi, can you tell me for x equal to 1, what do we do?
5 into 0.3 divided by
5 into 3 by 5, right? 5 into 3 by 5 plus
plus 3 into 0.2 by
3 into 2 by 5. Okay, so this will give us 15 by 5 plus 6 by 5, 21 by 5. Okay, so something it is 21 by 5, whatever. Okay, then finally, who else was saying? Yeah. Devansh, finally for x equal to 7, expected value, what do you say?
3. Please.
Yeah, so it is 2 into, I don't know whether it is 3 by 4 plus 1 into
6
3 by
into
4.
1 by 4.
6 into 1 by 4. Okay, so that will give us 8 into 8. No, what is this? 6 plus 18, right? 24 by 4. Yes, 24 by 4.
6 by 4 plus 6 by 4.
So what is the final answer? I will believe
3.
you, Devansh. 3. Okay. All right. So now what I'm saying is for a given value of x equal to 2, this is a function of x. See, this entire thing does not really depend on y. This is a function of x. It's something, some h of x. Okay, this is like some h of x. So for a given value of x, this number is fixed. Either you get this or you get this or you get this. Right? So like the way you said f of x is fixed, similarly expected value of y given x is also a function of x, and this is also fixed. Does that make sense? Is it clear, Lakshmi, Anushri and Devansh, why this is a
Yes, sir.
fixed number?
yes sir.
Devansh, is it clear why this is
Yes,
also
yes.
fixed? Okay. Now, finally, this is also fixed. We have already seen this. The only thing that is random is this part. Okay, this is random because this can still change. Okay, y and x together. So what I'm saying is p of xy is there. This is equal to p of x into p of y given x. Okay, so y can still vary for a given x. So there can be some randomness here. Okay, so now when you take this idea, so this is fixed, this is fixed. So what you get expected value of x with respect to x of the first term. Does anybody have a class after this? I will take just 2 minutes more. Please let me know if you have any class. Okay. So then you have, so the expectation of this thing is there, right? Expectation given x, all these things will come out of that. Okay. Then you have expected value of y given x minus y whole given x. This is what you have. Okay. Now this is like, this is again, I told this is also fixed. Okay. So what you will get is, this is expected value of x, f of x minus expected value of y given x. Okay. Then this will be, this is like a constant. Okay. So this entire thing, this minus this is 0. So you get 0. Okay, so what is it that we were doing? We were looking at expectation of this. So this entire thing vanishes. So what we get in essence together after putting all of this together, so we will get this expected value of f of x minus y whole squared is consisting of expected value of f of x minus expected value of y given x whole squared plus expected value of y given x minus y whole squared. These are the two terms that will remain. Okay. Now, so this term for any f, this term will appear. Okay. This is going to be there. This is fixed for all f. You cannot get away with this. If, however, so if you choose f of x equal to this, so this is going to be a positive term, right? This is always a positive term. Okay. So now for a particular fixed thing, you have this term plus this term. Okay, so then this is going to be a positive term. So what essentially we have shown is that expected value of f of x minus y squared. Okay, this term, there is positive term plus this should be greater than or equal to expected value of y given x minus y whole squared. So what we have said is expected value of y given x is the best amongst all the f. So this is argmin over your best. It's over all possible regression things that you could have chosen for the least square loss. The best thing that you can choose is expected value of y given x. Okay. So now what is the problem? If you can do this, then you have got, see, we have now shown two things in this class. We have shown that the base classifier is the best. And now I'm also telling you what is the best function also. Okay. I have shown both the things. I'm telling you this is the optimal. You can't do better than this. But the problem is, how do you know how to do this, right? To find out the expected value of y given x, you need to know the joint distribution. Okay. Since you don't know the joint distribution, that is where all the problem is coming from. Okay. Since we do not know, this is what is the issue is. So, but from the probabilistic standpoint, okay, the conditional expectation is the best function that you can learn when your loss function is the least square loss. Okay. So what we can do, so if you take now example, if you take for example, yeah.
So if we have all the x and y's with us, like all the training samples we had with us, so why couldn't we construct a table of joints from that?
Yes, that is one such classifier. People use such classifiers. You can do this, but it will not work properly. Okay, because it's just an approximation. If you are doing expected value of y given x using the method that you are telling, okay, the problem is, I will tell you, you will not have several samples where x is taking a particular value of x. Two customers will not be exactly identical, so there will be some variation. Okay, so if you want to learn, so empirically, if you want to learn this, right? So let's say you want to learn this from data. Okay, what you need to do is for every x equal to small x, you need to have several samples. Okay, you need to need several samples with x equal to x. See, there are many things you can do. What you can do is you can collect. See, there will very few cases you will have where several customers will have the exact same features. Okay, so if you are, for example, like house, let's look at the house example. Okay, house example with the 3 bedrooms. Okay, area is 1400 square meters. Okay, then let's say urban. Okay, then what else? First, 5th floor. All these features you will not get in two houses exactly, will not be identical. If there were many houses with this exact same feature, expected value of y given x is the average of all of them. Yes, who asked me this question? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So the problem is we don't have this perfectly. That is why we are having all this trouble. Okay, we will have instead of 2 bedrooms, you will have 3 bedrooms. You will have 2 bedrooms. This will be 1450. Then this will be semi-urban. All these kind of confusions will arise. Okay, that is, and this will be first floor. So you cannot really, using these two, you cannot get an accurate estimate of expected value of y given x. But if you could do it, that is the best you can do for. It's interesting, right? This is the kind of things that we should have insight into. Okay, this, if you remember and if you try to really understand what's going on, this will give you very good insight about the problem. See, ultimately, you may not be able to do expected value of y given x, but you should know what is that you are seeking. So that is where this theory comes in. Okay, it will help you debug, it will help you improvise. Okay, so now if you look at y, just one last thing, I will finish extremely quickly. So if y belongs to 0, 1, then expected value of y given x, okay, is nothing but the posterior. Okay, so this is going to be p of y equal to 1 given x. This you can prove. This is homework for you. Okay, this is going to be posterior. Okay, so now you see everything is coming together. See, if you use amongst all functions that are used for regression, okay, amongst all functions that you use for regression in the least square sense, expected value of y given x is the best. Point number one. Amongst all functions that you are using for learning classification, posterior is the best. Okay, so that this also finishes all the discussions related to this, and it nicely ties up all these things. Okay, so I hope it was clear to everybody. Okay, so I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'm going to stop here. I will be available to take a few questions, okay, because I understand this could be difficult, but for those of you who have understood this, you can leave. All right, so I will stop here. Thanks everybody.